Mike Alcoholic. When I was a kid, I was over at my grandmom's one time, and I went over to her, I think it was my grandmother's mother's house down the street. And there was these ladies all in a big circle around a quilt, and they were sewing, and they were gossiping. And in our 12 and 12, it talks about whether you're in the sewing circle or in government or something like that. And I think that when I thought about the topic and what was being talked about is that somebody was asking this person to join in on the sewing circle. Now, we know nobody sews anymore. It's turned into text and on the phone. But what we're talking about is the sick pleasure that I can get out of joining the sewing circle. And, I've had these people that try to get me to join the sewing circle before. And I try to do what's called, I put them on the 5-minute plan. They want to call and they want to do that drama. I also call those people program parasites because they call whoever will listen and they drain you of your serenity because you're listening to that bullshit that they're trying to sell. And that's what they're selling. And the real question is, do I want to buy? And I have found myself in recovery buying all the way into it and almost getting high on that dope of drama, getting high on that gossiping. And I have been known to do it. And I'm not totally free from it, but at least I see what it is now. And when I think about that idea about gossiping, it really reminds me of 125 in our big book, where it talks about several principles that are very rarely talked about, because we think about the principle of honestly, open-mindedness, and willingness, but there's a lot of principles on that page. And interestingly enough, it's in the chapter of a family afterward. And the way I like to look at that chapter is that this is my family afterward. AA is my family afterward. And what does it talk about on 125? It talks about there may be scandalous gossip, laughter at the expense of others. And then it talks about another principle we adhere to. That's why I know they're all principles. It says we don't relate intimate experiences of another without their approval. And then I realized that there's more than just the few principles we talk about. And what he's talking about is the principle of trying to mind my own business is important. And then he goes on to say, one careless word has been known to raise the very devil. We're sensitive people. It takes many of us a long time to outgrow this serious handicap. And all of that on 125. And it's talking about a lot of what goes on in this family. Not this particular room. I know very few of you. But you have to know what I'm talking about. There's sewing circles at every AA meeting. You can almost spot them. It's the gossip table. And they're probably texting while I'm speaking at this moment. I wish that guy would shut the fuck up. Believe me, I've played this game for going on 3 decades. I know exactly how it works. I can spot them a mile away. And I always get a rush at the fact that I'm the guy that it's in the middle of their gossip sewing circle. And if they really even knew how much power I had over them while they're pulling that, they would not be doing it, but they don't. And I didn't realize it when I was in the sewing circle. See, so I had to be on the receiving end to some of this to realize how much damage I was causing other people by doing it, and how much damage I was causing myself by engaging in it. Because doesn't our book talk about when we engage in these things, we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile? And I have realized I have squandered many hours joining the sewing circle, getting in the middle of drama that I had no business into, getting high off somebody else's, not just shortcoming, but tragedy. And it's really put me in my place and let me see how am I supposed to be acting and how have I been acting. And this is when I really realized that just getting off the sauce is just the beginning of this thing. Because let me tell you something. A lot of us, we join the sewing circle when we get off the sauce because we're replacing the alcohol with that dope of gossip and drama. You can say I don't know what I'm talking about, but I absolutely do. Because I've been here long enough to be on both sides. That's why I can speak about this. So when I heard this topic, it was little about resentment and about what kind of person do I want to be. What kind of behavior do I want to endorse by allowing it to go into my psyche and in my ear 5-minute plan? And what kind of engagement in the behavior am I actually engaging in and squandering my hours that may have been worthwhile, and I have found that with the steps, they can be worthwhile. So I just wanted to throw out the principles that came to my mind from the topic. And I think 125 really goes into a lot. And it talks about in a chapter, and if I guarantee you, if you read A Family Afterward under the guise of this being our family, you will get a whole new perspective on that chapter. And that's when I got a lot more out of that chapter, because a lot of those chapters we tend to discount. I don't have a wife, throw it away. I'm not an employer, throw it away. Family Afterward, I'm not married, throw it away. And there's so many principles in those 3 chapters, it's unbelievable. Once I open my mind to what they're trying to tell me. I've had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, and I'll pass.